Hey Pixelers, Michael Haddon here. Oh dear LastPass. It's not my goal to focus on sensualist or dramatic topics on this channel, but this is something we have to talk about. The implications of the LastPass breach could and should represent a learning lesson for all DevOps and software engineers. I think, therefore, it is good to discuss what actually happened, how it could have been avoided, and what the future should look like. Perhaps we have overindulged in and trusted software as a service offerings too greatly. I want to emphasize that the purpose of this video is not to mock the actions of the LastPass DevOps engineer, as while some blatant lapses of judgment were made, we are all vulnerable to making mistakes. This is an example of a persistent attack, which means that the threat actors increase their foothold in stages without rushing the process. Therefore, it is important to look at this attack as a long series of events, one by one. What is believed to have happened? I have strung together a series of events which aligns with the current theory of how this breach occurred, but expect there to be alternative explanations. May 7th, 2020. The Plex security team discovered a major security flaw. This allowed an actor with access to a server's Plex account to upload malicious files to the camera upload feature. It is important to note, this issue could not be exploited without first gaining access to the server's Plex account. June 21st, 2022. Interestingly, the attack has not occurred yet. However, a LastPass spokesman provided the following statement. Any LastPass user that created an account after September 16th or had deleted their account prior to June 21st would have not had their vault data taken. I assume this is because LastPass keeps user data for 30 days in case of accidental deletion. However, if you deleted your account on June 21st, then it should be wiped from LastPass by July 21st. This is 18 days before the apparent attack took place. August 8th, 2022. This is the beginning of the first attack. I quote, "A threat actor compromised a LastPass software engineer's corporate laptop to gain access to a cloud-based development environment. The adversary stole source code, proprietary technical documentation, and some of the company's internal system secrets. The threat actor used this technical documentation and some source code to exfiltrate 14 of approximately 200 source code repositories related to components of the LastPass service. The source code repositories included clear text, embedded credentials, stored digital certificates for the company's development infrastructure, and encrypted credentials used for production." The software engineer was one of LastPass's most senior DevOps engineers. LastPass told Ars Technica this was accomplished by targeting the DevOps engineer's home computer and exploiting a vulnerable third-party media software package, which enabled remote code execution capability and allowed the threat actor to implant keylogger malware. Ars Technica reports that the third-party media software package was disclosed to them as Plex. It is unknown if the aforementioned Plex vulnerability was the cause of the attack. However, a comment by LastPass states, "The threat actor exploited a vulnerability in an earlier unpatched version of Plex Media Server on a LastPass DevOps engineer's home computer. We have reached out to Plex Media Server to inform them." Presumably, the DevOps engineer had exposed his Plex Media Server publicly on the internet, punching a hole through his firewall. Utilizing the exploit, a keylogger was installed on this machine to scrape the engineer's master password and multi-factor authentication codes for the company's LastPass corporate vault. Even though LastPass mentions a corporate laptop being compromised several times, it is implied that the machine that ran Plex was the same machine that the keylogger was installed on. This means that the attacker was capable of moving laterally onto the work laptop, or the DevOps engineer used the same personal machine for work purposes, or that Plex was installed on the work machine. August 12th, 2022. The LastPass security team was alerted to the malicious activity. The company refers to this as the first incident, which was immediately followed by a second incident, which the company says began on August 12th. In the follow-on compromise, the threat actor used the information exfiltrated from the initial breach to initiate a more widespread and damaging attack. August 13th, 2022. LastPass engaged with incident response firm Mandiant. August 14th, 2022. The threat actor copied a backup of LastPass's customer database containing unencrypted account information, related metadata, and application configuration options such as multi-factor authentication. August 24th, 2022. Now, this might be a coincidence, but Plex reported a major network intrusion. In the emails by Plex, it is reported that people's data was leaked. This includes emails, usernames, and encrypted passwords. Plex reports, "Yesterday we discovered suspicious activity on one of our databases. We immediately began an investigation, and it does appear that a third party was able to access a limited subset of data that includes emails, usernames, and encrypted passwords." The email later clarifies that the passwords were hashed with bcrypt, and I can only assume properly salted. As far as I can understand, Plex did not report that any other data was leaked. However, in a 2015 compromise of Plex, it is noted that IP addresses were also leaked. I am therefore going to assume that the full set of data leaked was emails, usernames, bcrypt hashed passwords, and IP addresses. It could be theorized that this attack started a few weeks earlier, and might explain how the DevOps engineer's machine may have initially been compromised. You can imagine that the following information would be sufficient for an attack to happen. 1. A username from Plex. 2. An IP from Plex. 3. Password from another unknown source, maybe another credential dump. 4. A possibly exposed Plex installation running on the DevOps engineer's machine. 5. A Plex installation with a critical vulnerability for logged-in administrators. August 25th, 2022. The first public announcement is made by LastPass, implying the whole thing is under control and there is nothing to be concerned about. To all LastPass customers, 2 weeks ago, we detected some unusual activity within portions of the LastPass development environment. After initiating an immediate investigation, we have seen no evidence that this incident was involved in any access to customer data or encrypted password vaults. We have determined that an unauthorized party gained access to portions of the LastPass development environment through a single compromised developer account, and took portions of source code and some proprietary LastPass technical information. Our products and services are operating normally. Has any data within my vault or any user's vaults been compromised? No. This incident occurred in our development environment. Our investigation has shown no evidence of any unauthorized access to encrypted vault data. Our zero-knowledge model ensures that only customers have access to decrypt vault data. Has any of my personal information or the personal information of any of my users been compromised? No. Our investigation has shown no evidence of any unauthorized access to customer data in our production environment. September 8th, 2022. The threat actor started to copy 5 binary large object database shards. The backups were dated August 20th, August 30th, August 31st, September 8th, and September 16th. These exfiltration of database backups occurred between September 8th and September 22nd. September 15th, 2022. On this date, LastPass assured their customers that the situation was under control and that no further concerns were found. To all LastPass customers, we have completed the investigation and forensics process in partnership with Mandiant. Our investigation revealed that the threat actor's activity was limited to a 4-day period in August 2022. During this time frame, the LastPass security team detected the threat actor's activity and then contained the incident. There is no evidence of any threat actor activity beyond the established timeline. We can also confirm that there is no evidence that this incident involved any access to customer data or encrypted password vaults. Our investigation determined that the threat actor gained access to the development environment using a developer's compromised endpoint. While the method used for the initial compromise is inconclusive, the threat actor utilized their persistent access to impersonate the developer once the developer had successfully authenticated using multi-factor authentication. The LastPass development environment is physically separated from and has no direct connectivity to our production environment. Secondly, the development environment does not contain any customer data or encrypted vaults. Thirdly, LastPass does not have any access to the master passwords of any of our customers' vaults. Without the master password, it is not possible for anyone other than the owner of a vault to decrypt the vault data as part of our zero-knowledge security model. The information that LastPass could gather from the attacker was limited. Third-party VPN services allowed the threat actor to obscure their location, impersonate the software engineer, and access and maintain a dedicated connection to the cloud-based development environment via corporate VPN. LastPass describes this as a tailgate approach that relied on the software engineer's successful authentication with domain credentials and multi-factor authentication. No privilege escalation was identified or required, the company said in its incident report. The threat actor also performed anti-forensic activity and an operating system upgrade on the software engineer's corporate laptop, scheduled during the 4-day period, overwrote logs and system artifacts. The initial threat vector that the adversary used to gain access to the software engineer's machine remains unknown according to LastPass. October 26, 2022. This is supposedly the last date that we know the threat actor was operating inside of the system. I would hesitate taking this as fact though, as the timeline and scope of this breach keeps growing in scale. The threat actor, still active in LastPass systems, engaged in a new series of reconnaissance, enumeration, and exfiltration activities involving the company's AWS S3 storage buckets, a subsequent investigation found. The threat actor operated undetected by LastPass for almost 3 months as part of the second incident, which LastPass said spanned from August 12th to October 26th. We cannot confirm with certainty that it was one or more threat actors. There were no further exfiltration activities after September 22nd, 2022, since October 26th, 2022. We have not seen any threat actor activity. November 30th, 2022. The realization of the scope of the breach is now fully realized, and an announcement is made to all LastPass customers. We recently detected unusual activity within a third-party cloud storage service, which is currently shared by both LastPass and its affiliate GoTo. We immediately launched an investigation, engaged Mandiant, a leading security firm, and alerted law enforcement. We have determined that an unauthorized party, using information obtained in the August 2022 incident, was able to gain access to certain elements of our customers' information. Our customers' passwords remain safely encrypted due to LastPass's zero-knowledge architecture. The parent company GoTo then released their first statement. To all GoTo customers, I am writing to inform you that GoTo is investigating a security incident, while we are currently working to better understand the scope of the issue. We wanted to let you know about the situation and how we are responding. Upon learning of the incident, we immediately launched an investigation, engaged Mandiant, a leading security firm, and alerted law enforcement. Based on the investigation to date, we have detected unusual activity within our development environment and third-party cloud storage service. The third-party cloud storage service is currently shared by both GoTo and its affiliate LastPass. The statement by GoTo was initially met with criticism as they flagged the post with no index, so browsers would not show it in their search results. According to TechCrunch, the no index flag was removed, however this was likely over 2 weeks afterwards. December 22nd, 2022. Now the full bombshell is dropped. To our LastPass community. Based on our investigation to date, we have learned that an unknown threat actor accessed a cloud-based storage environment, leveraging information obtained from the incident we previously disclosed in August of 2022. While no customer data was accessed during the August 2022 incident, some source code and technical information were stolen from our development environment and used to target another employee, obtaining credentials and keys which were used to access and decrypt some storage volumes within the cloud-based storage service. LastPass production services currently operate from on-premise data centers with cloud-based storage used for various purposes such as storing backups and regional data residency requirements. The cloud storage service accessed by the threat actor is physically separate from our production environment. To date, we have determined that once the cloud storage access key and dual storage container decryption keys were obtained, the threat actor copied information from backup that contained basic customer account information and related metadata including company names, end user names, billing addresses, email addresses, telephone numbers, and the IP addresses from which customers were accessing the LastPass service. The threat actor was also able to copy a backup of customer vault data from the encrypted storage container, which is stored in a proprietary binary format that contains both unencrypted data, such as website URLs, as well as fully encrypted sensitive fields, such as website usernames and passwords, secure notes, and form-filled data. What does this mean? Is my data at risk? The threat actor may attempt to use brute force to guess your master password and decrypt the copies of vault data they took. January 3rd, 2023. In Massachusetts, a class action lawsuit has been brought up against LastPass due to the alleged involvement of the data leak in a theft of $53,000 worth of bitcoins. At this point, we know very little about the profile of the threat actor. It seems to me that if the culprit was a state actor, then they might be careful to only target the individuals that are of interest to them. For example, politicians and business relations that are connected to the events in Ukraine. Targeting more individuals than necessary would risk triggering alarms, which could make your actual targets retreat from your radar. If the threat actor was not a state actor, then you could imagine that it would be more profitable to sell huge segments of the data to other parties than to crack it. Breaking into 33 million accounts will take an enormous amount of time. Likely, instead of blind brute force, they will use their local dump as a sort of way of avoiding soft lockout or two-factor authentication, and attempt each email's known leaked credentials and common password combinations. However, do not feel too comfortable as it's not impossible to brute force a vault. The reason why I say this is I am skeptical whether or not this Bitcoin heist is related to the LastPass incident, as we have not heard of any other breaches that could be related yet. At the moment though, it is not even known if the attack was conducted by a single actor, since the system was vulnerable for around 3 months. January 23rd, 2023. The compromise of LastPass is reported to have spread to the rest of the GoTo ecosystem. To all GoTo customers, Our investigation to date has determined that a threat actor exfiltrated encrypted backups from a third-party cloud storage service related to the following products: Central, Pro, Join.me, Hamachi, and Remotely Anywhere. It is reported that this happened because these GoTo services shared the same backup storage vault as LastPass. February 27th, 2023. The source of the second incident is finally linked to the initial breach. This attack targeted LastPass infrastructure, resources, and an employee in a campaign of overlapping activity. The observed tactics, techniques, and procedures, as well as indicators of compromise of the second incident, were not consistent with those of the first. While proximal in terms of timeline, it was not initially obvious that the two incidents were directly related. The second incident saw the threat actor quickly make use of information exfiltrated during the first incident to enumerate and ultimately exfiltrate data from the cloud storage resources. Alerting and logging was enabled during these events, but did not immediately indicate the anomalous behavior that became clearer in retrospect during the investigation. Specifically, the threat actor was able to leverage valid credentials stolen from a senior DevOps engineer to access a shared cloud storage environment, which initially made it difficult for investigators to differentiate between threat actor activity and ongoing legitimate activity. Ultimately, AWS Guard Duty alerts informed us of anomalous behavior as the threat actor attempted to use cloud identity and access management roles to perform unauthorized activity. To access the cloud-based storage resources, notably S3 buckets, which are protected with encryption, the threat actor needed to obtain AWS access keys and the LastPass generation decryption keys. The encrypted cloud-based storage services house backups of LastPass customer and encrypted vault data. As mentioned in the first incident summary, certain LastPass credentials stolen during the initial attack were encrypted and the threat actor did not have access to the decryption keys, which could only be retrieved from two locations. 1. A segregated and secured implementation of an orchestration platform. 2. A highly restricted set of shared folders in a LastPass password manager vault that were used by DevOps engineers to perform administrative duties in these environments. Due to the security controls protecting and securing the on-premise data center installations of LastPass production, the threat actor targeted one of the 4 DevOps engineers who had access to the decryption keys needed to access the cloud storage service. This was accomplished by targeting the DevOps engineer's home computer and exploiting a vulnerable third-party media software package, which enabled remote code execution capability and allowed the threat actor to implant keylogger malware. The threat actor was able to capture the employee's master password as it was entered, after the employee authenticated with multi-factor authentication, and gain access to the DevOps engineer's LastPass corporate vault. The threat actor then exported the native corporate vault entries and content of shared folders, which contained encrypted secure notes with access and decryption keys, needed to access the AWS S3 LastPass production backups. It seems to me like LastPass is claiming that this was a targeted attack. The threat actors knew exactly who they needed to compromise, and they managed to find a way in. Whether they knew this before they broke into the DevOps machine or afterwards is unknown. However, the implication is that this is a sophisticated attack, conducted by a party with a specific goal in mind. Can we accept that this is a coincidence, that the targeted DevOps engineer was one of 4 with the specific access required for this attack to be conducted? March 1st, 2023. The curtain is pulled back, and we can now see the full scope of the breach. What data was accessed? As detailed in the incident summaries, the threat actor stole both LastPass proprietary data and customer data, including the following. Summary of the data accessed in Incident 1. 1. on-demand cloud-based development and source code repositories. This included 14 of 200 software repositories. 2. Internal scripts from the repositories. These contained LastPass secrets and certificates. 3. Internal documentation. Technical documentation that described how the development environment operated. Summary of data accessed in Incident 2. 1. DevOps secrets. Restricted secrets that were used to gain access to our cloud-based backup storage. 2. Cloud-based backup storage contained configuration data, API secrets, third-party integration secrets, customer metadata, and backups of all customer vault data. 3. Backup of LastPass multi-factor authentication federation databases. Contained copies of LastPass authenticator seeds, telephone numbers used for the multi-factor authentication backup option, as well as a split knowledge component, the K2 key, used for LastPass federation. This database was encrypted, but the separately stored decryption key was included in the secret stolen by the threat actor during the second incident. An important note is the following. We have shared technical information, indicators of compromise, and threat actor tactics, techniques, and procedures with law enforcement and our threat intelligence and forensic partners. To date, however, the identity of the threat actor and their motivation remains unknown. There has been no contact or demands made, and there has been no detected credible underground activity indicating that the threat actor is actively engaged in marketing or selling any information obtained during either incident. How could this have been avoided? There is a lot of unknown details, and this attack does seem quite sophisticated. If this threat actor is well funded and connected, it is not unreasonable to think that they couldn't have broken through with other means. From the perspective of clients of password managers, it does bring into question on whether or not such a tool should even be a cloud service at all. If the mechanisms to upload code changes to production were infiltrated as well, then it would have been additionally possible to have injected a hook into the web form which extracts people's master passwords too. With password managers such as KeePass, Bitwarden, or VaultWarden, the individual's credentials can be kept within their own ecosystem without being exposed on the public internet. Centralization of all our credential management into only a few entities is only going to make those few entities very high risk. It brings into question whether or not we have become too comfortable offloading concerns to third-party software-as-a-service providers. What are the issues? There are two major issues I have with the report from LastPass. 1. How did the attacker jump from the DevOps personal machine to the corporate laptop? 2. How did the attacker jump from the dev environment to the production backup vault? I'm not going to blame the DevOps engineer for having an insecure Plex instance on his personal machine. It is dumb. However, it is hard to ensure that every network that someone connects their machine to is guaranteed to be safe. According to the report, they seem to have no idea what happened on the corporate laptop because a system update wiped the logs. Personally, I get the impression that the DevOps engineer was somehow able to connect to the VPN and dev environment from his personal machine, and this was the machine that compromised the system. For the second issue, I can only assume that the production backup vault was a shared storage vault for all environments, for LastPass and multiple services by GoTo, meaning the dev environment had access to the production backup vault. These are two big assumptions, but they present two major security shortcomings of LastPass's system. It is worth noting though that it is entirely possible that there were exploit methods used that we are still not fully aware of that may also explain these events. What could be done? Proper company education. It is said that after the breach that LastPass helped the engineer secure his home environment. Perhaps, especially as a security company, this is something that should have been done before the individual gains privileged access. Never open ports to your home network. I would only ever open a port if it was a secure VPN connection. Nothing else needs to be available on the public internet. Some modern VPNs even utilize NAT traversal in order to connect nodes together without even an open port. If Plex was not available on the open internet, then the attackers would have not had any attack vector to exploit it. Segment your home network. As an engineer with privileged access, it is important to have a proper work environment even at home. By segmenting your home network, you can ensure that compromised machines cannot easily hop to other systems. I would usually segment the network into 3 sections. 1. Untrusted, for IoTs and guests. 2. Personal machines. 3. Work machines. Mandatory lockdown corporate laptops. I know corporate laptops often suck to work on, but as a company with sensitive data, I do not think you have a choice. This means things like full disk encryption, restricted administrator control, firewall that blocks everything, mandated antivirus software with strict policies, restrictive group policies such as limiting the usage of removable media and limiting the ability to create hotspots, enforced software updates, strong password policies, and restricted VPN access, which ensures the machine can only connect if all of the above comply with the system. Even if the engineer did do some work-related programming on his personal machine, it should not have been possible to have used that as a launchpad to somehow jump onto the network. Hard division between dev and production. LastPass claims that there was already a strong division between dev and production. As far as I can see, the production environment itself was never breached. However, there seems to be no division between dev and the production backup vault. This makes no sense to me. Break glass accounts. LastPass DevOps engineers needed access to decryption keys to perform maintenance tasks. I am skeptical on whether or not that is really necessary. However, it is not hard to imagine a system where accessing such keys requires an audit process, which also causes a system alarm that notifies engineers immediately. Thanks for checking out this video. As always, I hope you guys have a lovely day. Cheers.